Coaching is a wonderful thing. It does so many things to help both individuals, families, extended families, communities, and even countries. And it does many things. One of the things it does is connect. And right now in the world, Tony, all you have to do is watch television, pick up the newspapers. You will see that today we have countless groups of people dotted all over the planet trying to hurt other groups of people all over the planet. And in coaching, we call that a disconnect. There's a huge disconnect out there because, you see, if people were truly connected, they could not dream of trying to hurt another human being. It would be like wanting to hurt yourself. And why would you do that?
Excellent.
Yeah. And coaching helps to connect people. First of all, and most importantly, it helps people to connect to themselves. And we have a huge problem all around the world right now. We have a problem with substance abuse, with alcohol, with violence, with aggression. And an awful lot of that is down to the fact that people don't love themselves. Now, when I use the word love, I don't mean some narcissistic way where you stand in the mirror looking at your hair and your makeup. It's to do with the word, it's more acceptance. People truly, truly accepting themselves for who they are. And people are very confused about who they are. We get mixed messages from everywhere, from our rulers, our governments, from our community leaders, from our religious leaders, especially from social media, from the normal media. So many mixed messages about who we should be, what we should be, how we should look, how we should act. And people get ever so confused and they get frustrated. And that frustration builds up and it builds up over time. And it's like a pressure cooker. It releases in all sorts of unpleasant ways. And people harm themselves. So many people are self-harming, not purposely. They don't realize they're self-harming, but they are doing it through substances, tobacco, alcohol, and many other things like that. And coaching. Coaching helps people to get back in touch with their true selves, to recognize who they are, to accept who they are, and it helps, if I use the word, to complete them. And once they accept who they are, then they can connect with other people. But it's very difficult to connect in a meaningful, loving, caring, and the important word is compassionate way with other people if you don't show total care and compassion for yourself. It's almost like an epidemic out there. I travel 20, 30 countries every year, and I see it everywhere. No one country has a monopoly on this confusion and frustration and disconnect.
And so coaching is much in the world of healing.
That is a great way of putting it. You see, coaching, and I said this the other day in a talk, is MAD, M-A-D. What does that mean? It means it makes a difference. And it always makes a difference for the good. There are a few things coaching does, and it does so well. Number one, it empowers people. It gives human beings back their own power. Because in the world we live in today, we have what I would call a transference of responsibility. We have given the responsibility away to other people to make us happy, to entertain us, to fix us, to cure us, and so on. So coaching helps men and women to take back their own power. And it is amazing when that happens. The transformation is quite extraordinary. The other thing it does, it gives people the knowledge of who they are, and it helps them to reconnect with their true core values. And again, one of the challenges is we are born into this world as the most amazing, I don't know what word to use, creature, the most amazing creation that you can imagine, you know? And we come straight from the Creator. And we come with a wonderful set of values. But as we grow, we take on the values of those around us, naturally. The first people would be our parents, our family, our close community. Then we go to school and we are taught certain values. And it's interesting that the values in one country, education system, will be completely different to the values taught in another country's education system. So we are taught values at school. Then we go to work and we take on the values of the corporation that we work for. And over time, we take our values and we put them to one side. And we take on all these new values. We then immerse ourselves in this world of media, communication, internet, instant gratification, messages coming from so-called exemplars, Hollywood gurus, and so on. And we get very, very confused. Coaching helps human beings to get back in touch with their true core values and to take the others, put them to one side, and to put your own values back on like a coat. And when you do that, and when you see someone who has done that, having worked with a coach, they are a different human being. They are, first of all, they're clear of thought. They are passionate. They get back the passion again, and the passion for the important things in life. And they get focused. They get focused on what is really important to them. And the other thing it gives them is courage, strength and courage. So it gives them their true core values, the strength and courage to follow those core values, the focus to know what they should be doing, could be doing, might be doing, and how to then go and do it. And coaching also helps them with the other key element, which is the follow through. Not just having a good idea and setting a course of action, but carrying it through to a completion. So coaching, to my way of thinking, and I love coaching, it's my whole life, it is a complete rounded package that takes a human being, helps them to build, to grow, to develop, to expand, and to be all that they can be. The Maharishi project, as they call it, Maharishi project, came from the Maharishi who came over to America from India many years ago. He became famous because he worked with the Beatles, so it became quite high profile. He introduced a form of meditation called transcendental meditation. And they did a thing where they got a group of what they call siddhis. Siddhis are advanced meditators. And they put them in cities all around the world. Now, they didn't tell anyone, they didn't advertise it. They put these men and women into just a church hall or a community center. They gave them some water, and they quietly meditated. And they all meditated on one concept, the concept of peace. Now, before they did it, they went around and measured the serotonin levels in those different city populations. And serotonin is a drug we manufacture ourselves. We call it the feel-good drug. It makes you feel really great. And they measured the serotonin levels, and they were what they were. These men and women then quietly sat in these community centers and church halls for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They had no food, they fasted, but they drank lots of water. They sat cross-legged and they meditated on the concept of peace. And something extraordinary happened. The crime rates in every single one of those cities plummeted. They didn't just drop a little bit, they plummeted. And you can go onto Google and you can research the Maharishi program or the Maharishi effect or experiment, and it documents it. And they did that for 3 days. They then finished on the Monday. They took the serotonin levels of the samples of the population, at random samples, and as you can imagine, they were sky high. People were feeling rather good. And then they stopped meditating, and within about 24, 40 hours, everything was back to normal. Crime was back up. The police chiefs were happy, they could keep their job, and everything was back to normal. But the purpose of the experiment was to show that what you and I think, and it's not think, it's feel, what you and I think influences our feelings, and our feelings influence the world around us. We create our world through our feelings and our emotions. So the three things go together, the triumvirate: thoughts, feelings, emotions. Difficult to have one without the other. You have the thought, creates a feeling, engenders the appropriate emotion. You and I can influence those around us by how we feel, without us having to say anything. And there's a wonderful institution called the Heart Math Institute in the US. They've done amazing studies on this, and they talk about the heart donut effect. So if you can imagine, you are standing in the middle of a donut in the hole. Now, we all know about chakras, we know about auras, and they go out to a given level. This is much different. In the Heart Math have done experiments showing that human beings can influence people by the power of their emotions and thoughts out to a distance of approximately 10 miles. It is astounding. And again, we see this throughout human history. We see it in the Second World War in Nazi Germany. What percentage of the population were actual signed-up Nazis? Tiny, a couple of percent. But because of the vehemence of their feeling and emotion, because it works both positive and negative, and they were obviously in the negative camp, because of the vehemence of their aggressive emotion, they affected all of those around them. We saw it in Russia under Stalin. We saw it in Cambodia. We saw it in Rwanda. Each time, it was only a tiny percentage of the population who felt that way, a rather aggressive, negative, evil way, but nevertheless, they felt that way. They felt it so strongly, their emotions were so powerful, they affected those around them. Now, the wonderful news is, it works in a positive way as well. And here we are on this planet of 7 billion, or thereabouts. We are not approaching a crisis. I would say we are probably right in a crisis. Many, not just one, we have a number of crises, not just the climate change, but the water situation. It is terrible. But there are right now tens upon tens upon tens of thousands of wonderful people, positive-minded people, people with a good heart, with a big heart, who, again, with their thoughts, their feelings, and the appropriate positive emotions, can also affect tens of thousands of people around them. And I feel that coaching has got a major part to play in this process by helping individual men and women to become great coaches. They, in turn, working with their clients, helping their clients to change, to become empowered, to have the strength, the courage, to have the focus, to get back in touch with their true core values, to set about making the appropriate changes in their life to help this planet that we live on. And helping them to think, feel in the right way, and they in turn will impact the people around them, their families, their communities. So I feel it's like the waterfall effect. If we can train enough, I call it magnificent coaches, they in turn can go out, and long after I'm gone, long after I've ceased to be, they will carry on empowering hundreds of thousands and millions of people all around the world, and create a paradigm shift and help people to realize that this is our home, this planet. It has supported life of so many types for billions of years. We've been around for that amount of time. And it will help humans to understand that it has protected us. And we now must work ever so hard to protect it.
That's awesome. Really loved it. Really, first enough. We get our needs met from each other,
We do.
and the rest of the things we really don't need them.
You don't. You can only wear one pair of shoes at a time, one shirt, drive one car. And like you, I went through a period in my life where I felt my significance could be reflected by what I owned. And I made the huge mistake that millions make, that stuff equals happiness. So I went about accumulating stuff. And actually, it becomes a burden. You worry about your stuff. Who will try and take your stuff? You have to protect your stuff. You have to store your stuff. And many years ago, I realized happiness is an inside job. And our stuff has nothing to do with it. And we actually need very, very little. Very little. This is why, one of my hobbies is adventure motorcycling. I love it. I go away on my bike for weeks and weeks at a time, and I don't want to disgust people, but I take 3 t-shirts, 3 pairs of underpants, 3 socks, a couple of jumpers, very little. Everything I take, I can live on the road in a bag that size, And I have more happiness when I do that than when I'm surrounded by expensive stuff. It's.
I can concur with that.
Yeah.
When I initially came here to work, I didn't bring anything with me but a rucksack.
Yeah.
On a cellular level or a spiritual level, what's going on?
Oh, I think there's a huge amount going on. And again, we could delve into the whole world of quantum physics. We could look at the work done by Bruce Lipton and many, many other wonderful scientists where they show if you take a person's cell from their body, you can remove it at an amazing distance, thousands of miles. You stimulate one cell, the other is stimulated instantly, actually quicker than the speed of light. You then look at the work of some of the most recent scientists looking at the fact that actually we live in an electrical universe. Everything is electrical. And this actually goes diametrically against traditional teaching. In fact, they use the phrase, there are 2 types of people now, the mechanists and the vitalists. The mechanists are the ones who believe in, black holes and all the typical forces, and the vitalists are the ones who believe we live in an electromagnetic universe. And in fact, when you do, it answers all the questions that traditional science has had a challenge answering. But coming back to that, the fact that we live in an electromagnetic universe, you and I, if we are connected, Tony, whether we are sitting 5 feet from each other or we are at the end of a Skype or a webinar 3,000 miles apart, actually makes no difference. It makes 0 difference. There's an old saying, and your grandmother told you this, where attention goes, energy flows. So in life, whatever you give your attention to, that is where you are focusing your energy. And whatever you focus energy on will grow, both positive and negative. So focus it on negative thoughts, they grow. Positive thoughts, they grow. So if I am coaching you or vice versa, and I am focusing 100% of my attention on you, I am focusing all of my appreciation for who you are on you, then my energy is totally focused on you. And because we live in an electromagnetic world, distances are irrelevant and time is irrelevant. I connect with you instantaneously. And literally, the trillions of cells of my body and my mind and my aura are interacting with yours. And we are impacting each other. We cannot not. It is impossible for us not to impact each other.
Beautiful. Love it. Think of their values, they're more conscious of themselves.
They are. It raises their consciousness. And there's a wonderful man, and bless him, he died now, wonderful scientist, David Hawkins. He wrote some wonderful books, Power versus Force, truth versus power, the I and the eye of the I. And he did amazing work on levels of consciousness within individuals, families, communities, countries, companies, and so on. And he came up with the most wonderful ways of actually measuring consciousness. And he came up with a ladder of measurements. Incredible. 200 was the level of truth. 1,000 was what he called, his words were, the Jesus level, which absolutely, totally transcendent, you know. So coaching helps human beings to get in touch with their consciousness, to understand what it is, how it is affecting them, and it helps, and the good news is, people's consciousness can change their level. And coaching helps their clients to raise their level of consciousness. And through a process almost of osmosis, the people around them will be affected as well, just by the nature of who they are. You see, human beings can impact those around them just by the fact and the nature of who they are. You know? You know what it's like. Sometimes you'll be near people and you'll feel there's a negative energy, that something is sucking the energy from you. And yet there are other people you meet and you just want to be around them because they are giving off a warm, invigorating, life-giving type of energy. And you just want to tap into that. And it's not always what they say, how they're dressed, the words they use. It's a fact of just the nature of their very being. And coaches change when they go through the training, and they then help to change and effect that change within their clients.
So you're so there's paramount to a paradigm shift. Is that correct?
Huge, yes. Yeah, and a paradigm shift, the word paradigm simply means a lot of people think the same thing, think and believe the same thing. It does not make it true. You know, people believe if you sailed far enough, you'd fall off the end of the earth. People believed that women were witches in the medieval times, and they killed thousands of these wonderful women because they knew about herbs and plants. But coaching can help to create a paradigm shift around the world where people start to think in a clear, conscious way, in a loving way, in a kind way, in a compassionate way. Compassion for three things: for themselves, for other human beings around them, and for the planet that we live on. And people need to become aware of our connection to the planet. We're not disconnected. We are intrinsically tied to it. If it dies, we die. And there is no plan B. There literally is no plan B, you know. So the only way we can fix the planet and then look after it and nourish it, because the other 8 million species on this planet are doing fine. They treat the planet in a wonderful way. We are the only species that actually treat this planet in an adverse and negative way. So we need to have compassion for ourselves, compassion and care for those around us, and compassion and care for our planet. And coaching helps us to do that in those 3 steps, actually.